with my next guest, Paul Jackson, who's the founder and CEO at Method. He's going to, once I bring him up, explain to you exactly what Method is, what they do, and why they do it. But the reason why I had him on the podcast is, as you know, talking to small business owners, I like to focus on tangible things that can be taken away today that you can put in your business tomorrow. One of the things that we talk about is automation. Automation is how the entire world is going, and this podcast is going to be no different. So, without further ado, let's get Paul up here on the stage right now. Paul, welcome to the Common Sense Show.
Micah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no worries. I'm excited for this interview, and one of the reasons why is because automation. I'm a process guy, so automation to me is process. So, I can't wait to talk about how you developed your methoding system and everything that Method stands for. So, why don't we start by you just introducing yourself to the audience, tell them who you are and about Method, how you founded it, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I could probably go back to the early days of like how I got here, right? Maybe just to set the context. So what Method is it's a no-code platform, like drag and drop, where small businesses who use either QuickBooks or Xero as their accounting software can make basically automate all the workflows between like getting a lead and turning into cash at the end. But how I got here, so I was an entrepreneur from an early age. I stole my parents' shoes and tried to sell it back to them as a shoe store when I was a little kid. I I didn't have a proper job growing up. I did neighborhood jobs and started my own service business, and eventually went to university. And I was in school for commerce, like finance, but then by the fourth year, I realized I actually really didn't want to wear a suit. I wanted to start a company, and so I started a software company back in, I guess, around year 2000. So aging myself here a little bit, but it was a software company for service businesses, and I can get into all the struggles of a first time like software entrepreneur, but I'll probably save the audience that. And ended up getting acquired in 2010 by a private equity company. And we sat around thinking, what do we do next? And we settled on a couple key insights that we had back then, which was companies, these small businesses that we had, these service businesses, if they're successful, and hopefully we made them successful, they would grow and they would change when they grew, and then they would outgrow our software, because our software was not a no-code software. You couldn't change it. It was how we provided it. And so if we could solve that, but they didn't outgrow us, that would be pretty cool. And two, we noticed that our customers were doing a lot of like late night, not development, but they're dragging and dropping and making their own reports and work order templates and invoice templates. I'm like, oh, okay, these guys are actually pretty creative, even though they're like field industry guys. Like this, it's not what they went to school for, but they're really good at it. And also we had learned running QExpress, that first company, that if we invested in automating some of the tasks that we're doing every day, whether it's like a sales process or like a customer service process, we could grow our customer base without growing our team. And we were bootstrapped, so that was pretty important. And so we came up with the idea of really bringing that same automation that we had done for ourselves to our small businesses through what is now coined no code, which is allowing someone who does not know how to code, like a citizen developer, to build their own apps and solve their own problems. And we thought this could be the coolest thing ever, especially if it's synced with their QuickBooks file. And that was we started Method. We didn't know people wanted it actually early on, but here we are, I guess 13 years later with 100 staff and lots of customers.
That's amazing. So I just sold my company last week. So
congratulations.
We just closed on it. Thank you. So I'm excited for you. In your progress. It's funny, you talk about aging yourself. I tell the story to my kids are now learning about like 9/11 in history books. And when they hear me say, well, I was getting ready for work when it happened, right? And I'm like watching it on TV unfold. They're just like, well, how old are you? It's just like, that wasn't that far ago or that long ago, according to me, in daddy years, But anyways, no, your story is inspiring. Of course, the goal of all small business owners, or most of them that I speak to, is they want to get bought. They want to sell their companies. They want to, um, you know, scale their company to a point where someone's actually interested enough to actually purchase them. But there's a gap between being able to do that and usually where they are. And oftentimes it's systems and processes that are, frankly, what people are buying when they buy your company. They're buying an opportunity to come into your business that they don't have to necessarily, invent the wheel again. They can buy a business that is actually automated and has processes and cash flows because you've done all the work for them. So why specifically did you target like contractors or the trades? Like what about that specific target market like inspired you to do this for them?
Well, this, just to be clear, so Method today is horizontal. So our biggest segment is actually manufacturers and wholesalers. We have nonprofits and professional services, but we also still have field service contractors. Okay. But my first business back in year 2000, 2010, that was the contractors. And the reason why I focused on them is I just saw the pains that they were going through, because I was going through it myself when I was running my own little service business, and just how people I knew who were in the industry would be doing their invoicing on a Friday night at 11 o'clock because they just couldn't get done during the day. And they would spend forever doing what I thought were fairly repetitive tasks that were not, didn't require critical thinking, things that really could be automated. And I figured that there had to be a better way, and that's what I wanted to do. This is back in the year 2000, the early days of the internet, and we've come a long way from a technology standpoint since then, but the problems are still the same as they experience today.
Yeah, I remember building like my first of many websites, way back then, 2003, and having my HTML, like how to code like HTML language books with my website up, and having to go from like in between the coding book, HTML coding book, to the website, how do I get a yellow banner, right? And it's just like all this code. So no code apps like you're talking about have really changed the game, and have let people who have literally no experience, people who are a little older on the technological spectrum, to be able to like actually integrate themselves. Have you noticed any resistance with people who are traditionalist? Do you find it hard to break into that segment of the population?
Well, I think so with the app, like with no code, it benefits two groups of people. One who is the kind of guy who would pick up an HTML book and try and figure out how to make a yellow banner, and is going to stay there to midnight until he gets that yellow banner on his website. So for them, they can be the citizen developer and they can use the no code for themselves. Then the other group of people is those who want something custom to make themselves the most efficient, but they say, you know what, I don't mind investing in paying someone else to do that, as long as it's reasonably priced. If someone's going to code that solution, it's not going to be reasonably priced. It's going to be super expensive. But you can do a no code solution to whatever pain point you have for like a couple hours of work, a few $100s worth of like a consultant's time, and maybe that's not worth learning how to do yourself. So we serve both groups of people.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I'm actually running a manufacturing firm right now. We manufacture these little soundproofing devices right here that go behind drywall and in the walls and in ceilings, and they attach to studs. And one of the things obviously that we run into all the time in the manufacturing process in general is spending an inordinate amount of time on the finance side, tracking payments, overdue invoices, following up. It is when you are a small firm and you're scaling, AR and AP just tends to be it ends up being something approximating a 15-hour a week job, trying to just, get, recoup those invoices and keep your lights turned on so that you can continue to, create distribution partnerships across the country and everything, right?
Yeah, I think like small business owners, they're here all the time. Like, yeah, you got to delegate. Yeah, you got to automate. And oh, yeah, but don't forget, you got to grow too. And those are all valid points, but it's a lot of noise if you don't know what that actually means. The way I see automation really playing a part is when you hit a critical number of staff or a critical point where you are the bottleneck. And usually that's around 10 employees. It depends on the industry and the company, but usually using Google Sheets or even a whiteboard, that probably works until you're around 10. And at a certain point, it's become chaotic and you feel like you're the bottleneck of your company. You find yourself apologizing to your staff and your stakeholders because like you're falling behind. And it's like, I've been there. It's super painful. And I think that's where it's time to automate. But like, what does that mean? How do you decide what to automate and what that even means at that point? I think that's what I get really excited about, is helping people figure that out.
So let's answer that question. Can you give us and of course, I guess the answer is it depends for every business, but when is it time specifically to automate? What key characteristics or qualities do you look for in a firm that essentially tell you, okay, this is time to automate this process or this function?
Yeah, I think you should start off with like just what a workflow is, which is a sequential list of steps in order to complete a task. Like, I think we have workflows for everything we do in our lives. There's a workflow that's specific to how you brush your teeth in the morning. Like, do you pick the toothbrush first, the toothpaste first? Like, do you rinse? Like it's probably a way you do it that is, you're not even aware of it. That is up to you. And would you trust someone else to brush your teeth? Probably not. But if you give them a list of steps to do, maybe they could do it for you. I'm wondering if the brushing
it's a little
teeth
weird, right? Just the thought.
Is a good example. Yeah. But there's business examples of that too. Like, how do you answer a complaint email? That's very delicate, and you want to make sure you answer that complaint email right. That's a workflow. There's a certain number of steps you go through to get the information from your CRM or whatever you store the information to address the complaint and how you respond to it. So what those steps are to complete a task like responding to a complaint email is a workflow. And if you think about all the workflows that you as a company and you as a business owner are doing from the time you get a lead to when they finally pay you, there's a lot of workflows in there. Like, how do you generate your quotes? How do you get acceptance of those quotes? Do you get a deposit? How do you get that deposit? Do you get them to sign? How do you get that signature? Do you send an invoice out first, or do you get that only upon completion? How do you get paid? What if there's a refund? So these are all workflows that in some ways are common to every small business, but in reality, the actual workflow steps of how exactly you do it are unique to your business. And the first step I would go through if I was at that point where I'm like apologizing to my stakeholders, employees for not getting stuff done, is I would start writing down like an SOP, like a standard operating procedure of all the things that I am doing as a business. And I would look at them all. Some of those should be automated. Some of those should be delegated. And some I should probably just keep on doing myself. And the way you figure out these things is you go through, there's a bunch of like criteria. And I think at the end I can give you a link on our website, which actually gives you a checklist to go through. But top level ones are, is it highly repetitive? Like, are you doing this thing over and over again? If not, it's probably not worth automating. It may not even be worth delegating. Is it critical, like in customer facing? So if you make a mistake, does the customer see it? Is there impact? Or can you kind of brush under the rug and then solve it again next time? If it's customer facing, you probably want to automate it so it's done right. Does it require critical thinking? Like, should this actually be a human task? Because really every time is different. That you don't want to really necessarily automate those ones, but ones that don't require critical thinking, you probably want to automate. And so you can go through some basic criteria to figure out which ones are the highest impact items that you could automate. And I would just pick 1, 2, and say, I'm going to automate those ones. The ones that you're not going to automate, you can delegate for now. But now you have a list of steps that you can give to someone else to do, and delegate those ones. And the rest you got to keep up because you need someone to do it. And at that point, once you've decided what you want to automate, that's when you start looking for tools. And I can probably go into that separately if you like.
Yeah, I mean, you're preaching to the converted, of course. I built a whole course for small business owners on not. So I'm agnostic about the tool specifically, but about the process of automation, why it's important, how to frame, like you mentioned, how to frame those systems, so that you can, and how to build SOPs to send someone to a company like Method, who will then take those priorities and then turn them into specific actions. Why do people, in your opinion, resist automation, and how do we get over those objections to automating?
Well, first, I don't think people know where to start. It just sounds like this big thing, automate, right? So it's hard to know what to do. 2, there's definitely a loss of control. So this has been documented by a million business book authors. I'll talk about the E-myth of
Right.
running your own business is going to give you freedom. It doesn't give you freedom because you hold on to way too much. So when you automate something, you are letting go. You're letting something else do it for you, and it's not necessarily always be exactly how you do it. It's going to be how you wrote your SOP steps, but it's not going to be necessarily how you solve every situation, and that has to be okay. So I think that's probably another reason. 3 is cost. Like, what's it going to cost me to automate that? Is it worth it? It sounds expensive. It sounds complicated. But I think that probably the biggest reason is it's just too big. Like, can you automate 1 or 2 items and create some breathing room, or do you have to automate your entire business? Is there a piecemeal way of doing it? I think that's where people get stuck.
It's funny that you mentioned that. I had a business coaching client who I suggested automating instead of physically invoicing every one of their. This person runs an academy, a chess academy, and instead of physically invoicing every parent every single month, to instead turn them into recurring memberships, so that when you're sleeping, you're getting paid, because they can just schedule. They're going to schedule anyway, and the only thing they're going to do is just cancel if they no longer want the charge. So it floored him. Like, he had to lay down for a second because it was like such a big idea to change from doing the manual work, because I wonder if there is some tactile function between you and your brain when you actually have to do things like this. So, for like writing a check, for instance, like, let's say that you were paying off your mortgage. There's something satiating to the soul about you physically writing the final check to the mortgage company, as old as that process is, but it's like you interacting and taking control of the situation. And I think that you're right. The fear of loss of control. What does it mean? Is my business going to turn into T1000 from Terminator, and all of a sudden it's going to start, sending out faulty things or making the mistakes that I don't make? What I find is that these machines, when told exactly what to do, like you said, like these systems, they're more precise than you are. You just have to make sure that really, like, the bottleneck is what kind of input are you going to put in there so that it is as effective as you, or even more so.
Yeah, it's this kind of reminds me of a conversation I actually had yesterday in the office. I walked by one of our success managers' desks, and they're like upset. I'm like, what's wrong? And they're telling me about this customer they had, which they're only using a small piece of the platform. There's so much more we can do with them. Oh, he only wants to do this one thing. I'm like, that's okay. At least they're doing that one thing. What's
Right.
the one thing? Oh, it's like they only use it to generate estimates. Well, they could just generate estimates in QuickBooks. Why are they doing it in Method? Oh, well, we built a custom form for him because he does estimates in a special way. So I really got into this, where he was a medical cabinet company, and so he manufactured medical cabinets. And apparently, every medical cabinet is different. You have different configurations of drawers and like how high it can be and what can go with what table leg. And because it's so complicated, he never trusted anyone else to do it. So he had scaled his business to actually a decent size, but he was the only one doing estimates. So we just built this, whatever steps he had, we got him to write it down, and we built that into Method to do his estimates for him. And that's now what he does. Like, he basically has a staff doing estimates. They don't use any other piece of the platform. They just do that. And our CSM was just like, we're taking advantage of him. He's not getting the value of the rest of the platform. It's not fair. We should give him a discount. Like, oh no, he's getting a great deal. We're saving him a huge amount of time. He is so free, you don't even understand. Let's find some more estimates for the guy, but don't worry about not using the rest of the platform. So they got to start somewhere, right?
It's true. I mean, if you're at the top of your game in an industry, I like to think that I was before I sold my company recently. I spent thousands of dollars and traveled thousands of miles to get one thing from a seminar, one thing from a conference. So, like, according to that logic, I misused my time, my travel, and my money to even go out there to earn the one thing. But that one thing may be $150,000. So it's all about how you view the level of convenience, knowledge, or whatever benefit you perceive that you're getting from that device or that mechanism. And in this case, it's Method. I mean, if he didn't even use Method for estimates but used it for something else, calendar scheduling, and he was fine with that, it de-stressed him, and that's the point of the CRM.
Yes, definitely. I think it's your conference example is great, because the ROI, the return on investment, is that's the calculation that matters. Is how much do you spend on that conference? What did you get back from it? How much is he spending on his Method subscription? What's he getting back out of it? It's probably worth a high multiple of what he spends on it. Therefore, it's worth it, as was the conference for you. So I think that getting over that hurdle, back to your original question, which is like, what stops people from automating? Getting over that hurdle that you got to use everything, or you got to automate your entire company in order to get started. I think if you get past that, then you can actually start, and then you're going to get somewhere.
What makes your company Method, the CRM, different and able to actually compete in the marketplace, to be unique? What's your USP?
Yeah, the two main things. The fact that we sync really well with QuickBooks, and the second being that it's no code, it's completely configurable. And I think if I step back a second, I look at what the market is today. So imagine you're now at that point where you're in this chaos. You're a 10+ person company. Everyone's told you to automate, and you've gone through and you create all your workflows, and you've figured out which ones should be automated, which ones should be delegated. You're like, okay, I need a tool to solve this one or two top ones first. You start looking around. You might look at a traditional CRM, like a HubSpot or a Salesforce, and those are great at solving generic problems. They're nice UIs, and that might be a good starting point. Or you go industry specific. Maybe the problems you want to solve are really related to your industry. And so if you're, say, a manufacturer, you find like a fishbowl, which is really good at managing inventory. Or you look at what we think is maybe the holy grail, which is why we created Method, which is something that syncs with your accounting software. It has a CRM, it has industry specific components, but everything you see in that product can be configurable and changed. So as you grow and as you scale and as you change your process in the future, it scales with you. You don't have to go through this process again. And so I think that's why we're different. Like, we sync with our accounting software really well, and we allow you to change over time with the configuration.
Yeah, that has been probably the biggest, I think, for me, frustration with CRM systems is you get in and you're attracted by the UI, and you're like, oh, it on the surface, it appears easy, And maybe it is easy at the beginning, and then you engage with it. But here's the problem. The problem is that you have nuances in your business that the CRM system cannot solve. Or if it does solve it, it's a clunky process that requires yet another third party integrated tool to help you completely solve the issue. And so it is rare to get a CRM system that, as you mentioned about Method, grows with you, that has the ability to be adaptable, has the ability to you know, absorb other information that's brand new to it, so that you can then apply that to a new process that you put in place.
Yeah, I think it hits a nail on the head, right? Like it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning, why we created Method. People would break up with us as they scaled and grew because we were that boxed software, this nice UI that looked good, but then as they scaled, they had to change or add a third-party product. And I think that's really the reality of most non-configurable products today, is they solve the problem you're trying to solve, but their workflow steps don't match up with the way you do things, don't match your workflow steps. So you either have to conform to someone else's way of doing what you do, or you attach some kind of solution external, whether it's a spreadsheet or it's actually like an add-on, and you do it that way. And you do that with enough problems, you become a Frankenstein. You have this like beast trying to run your business, and it becomes a real issue.
How do you suggest that a small business owner has that conversation with his employees about how they're going to automate, or that they're going to automate? How do you recommend having that conversation to help alleviate fears of, because loss of control is not just an issue for the owner, it's also an issue for people who perceive that their job is at risk because of this automation. How would you bring it up, and how would you frame it, in your opinion, to get everyone on board and to row in the right direction? Because often CRM systems need validation from a human party at some level eventually to run 100%.
Yeah, I guess that can be a delicate conversation. It shouldn't have to be, but I guess when we're surrounded by like AI is going to take your job everywhere around, that AI is becoming synonymous with automation, and people's backs might be up a little bit. In the project, the way I would explain any project, I would start with the why, moving on to what, and then the how. So the why is, hey, listen, we have these things today that I am still doing, or that you're doing, but without much direction, and that hasn't been written down. It feels chaotic. You know, it feels chaotic. You know, it can be better. I know it can be better, and I want to make this change to make for all of us. That's the why. The what is, I want to focus on things that are highly repetitive, that don't require a lot of your brains, or that I'm doing on the bottleneck of. And that should make sense to any logical person like that. And how we're going to do it, we're going to look for tools, and these are the ones I shortlisted. I think you can reassure them by saying, listen, like we're not focusing on things that require your brains. Those, you should be doing more of that. We're going to focus on things that don't require your brains, that you shouldn't really be doing. You're too good for that. And that's true.
Yeah.
Right. So you can say it with a straight face because it's true. And that's how I would frame it personally. That's how I've framed it in the past when I've had those conversations.
Yeah, I think I really actually like that line, because I think the replacement of a person, it's like, do you really want to be a widget pusher, presser, puller, packer for your entire life, or do you want to actually use your entire brain and actually grow with the company in other aspects and learn new skills? I mean, it's an opportunity to take a person. If you have a future-oriented leader in the business, it's an opportunity to rethink how you can utilize workforce labor and grow it and coach it into something more valuable for your business. It's actually more valuable for the business owner to have that person freer, more available to take on tasks that are bigger, that will end up getting them more money, that will end up generating more money for the company, and positioning both you and the company for success long term.
Yeah, I even had this conversation today. I mean, this morning I had a conversation about.
I must have bugs in your office. That's why.
It's I guess I mean, maybe it's a good sign or it's relevancy, but so the one of our developer leaders brought up this topic called Copilot, which is really AI on top of your code. And so they, and this is only relevant for people who in the software development industry, but the idea is that you can use AI to actually write some of your code for you. And should we experiment with this and see if it helps you write code better? And one of the concerns was, what, we're going to replace all the developers? It's like, no, hold on. Like, so in software development, the value isn't actually in writing code. It's in thinking through problems, how to solve a problem, how to piece it all together. The code part's like probably 10, 15% of your day. 85% of it is actually thinking. And that's the part that's not going to change. So you can just get more done in that 15% of the time. I could list all kinds of examples, but maybe I don't want to spin it too far into software development land.
No, I mean, frankly, I think it's, and maybe it's just that as humans, we are risk and loss averse, and we're trying to get ahead of what we perceive to be a job threatening event like T1000 coming in and taking jobs and stuff like that. But I just watched Terminator the other day. So watching him on all these references, showing my son what old school Terminator look like. But I think obviously it's the business owner's job to not automate their brain in the sense that they still need to think about how to build their company. This allows you to get to the 30,000 foot view. Having these automations actually allow you to do this so that you can play chess with your team. And you're like, okay, well, you were really good at this before we decided to automate this. These skills are also applicable in another function in the company. And it's going to be like writing with your left hand at the beginning, but you're going to ultimately be able to understand this and to be able to push forward, having that conversation, being able to think outside the box about how you can grow your business.
Yeah. And I just want to add that automation is not synonymous with AI. So I gave an AI example just now, but there are just like really plain, boring, vanilla versions of process improvements for automation. Like I can give you a fun one as an example. So we had a CEO of a guitar pick wholesaler. So they sold guitar picks and other guitar products online. And they're actually a pretty well-known brand, but she was still doing the invoicing. Why? Because if the dollar amount was above a certain threshold, then she wanted it with ACH, like electronic check. If it was below a threshold, she accepted credit cards, but she didn't trust her staff to actually run the payments. So she was still doing it until we wrote a little screen for her on invoicing. If the amount is above X, I think it was $1,000. If it's above $1,000, then show the ACH box. If it's below $1,000, so show both ACH and credit card. And then her staff could actually do invoicing. That sounds crazy that CEO would be doing this, but she was, and her life changed when she automated that process she previously owned. So these are the things I'm talking about. When you go through your SOPs, your operating procedures, and you realize that these are the things that you can let go, automate those. You don't have to go to the world of like, all right, let's like throw all our data into AI and have it crunch out a new algorithm to solve these problems that we do. Sure, but there's basic stuff you can do today to alleviate yourself, such as whether your staff can receive payments.
Yeah, no, I think that's an excellent example because it is an example that I think is lost. And I think that it's often people who are just not sophisticated enough with understanding the difference between the technologies and what they're designed for. And yeah, there will eventually be AI that blends into some of the other functions. It already is. But I think that you describing this in a systematic way would help a person who's listening to understand that if you are deciding whether or not to choose a CRM, if you're deciding to choose Method for your CRM, then you want to think about this in terms of functional, utilitarian, structured processes that you have to subtract your personal time from to get done. And we're replacing time right now. We're replacing your time with machine time. And I think it makes a lot of sense to think about it in terms of a SOP. And if you stick in that framework, then you're going to be successful implementing that CRM.
That's great. I wouldn't mind just adding. I know I'm here as a representative of our company, but really, I also want to just plug the whole movement of citizen developers, because that is fascinating. We are not the only no-code product out there. We are not the only ones that believe that putting the power in the hands of companies to have their own efficient systems to allow them to compete against the biggest competitor is worth doing. And so, if you are going down that path where you are trying to automate something and you're looking at products that can be configured, ideally with no code, and ones that cannot, please choose the no code solution. You're gonna be so much happier in the long term. You won't have to redo this decision 2 years down, 3 years down. You'll be growing with the product.
Yeah, that makes sense. Even in the manufacturing business that I run right now, you have to decide between so building it is one thing, and then implementation is a whole nother thing. And oftentimes, larger companies that have teams that do this, they're hiring the experts that can modify the code and can make these quick decisions. So as a small business owner, you don't have that. You can take a course if you want. It's just going to delay your deployment of a CRM system. But I would recommend going the no code route to avoid having to invest so much time and money on the education piece. So Paul, any other last minute encouraging words that you can give the people who are watching or listening about automation, about the automation movement, about really get into their business to a place where they can look at a solution that, like a CRM system, specifically no code, which I endorse, of course, and implementing that today or tomorrow?
Yeah, three come to mind. One, don't give up. Like everything in a small business, you're going to wake up and you're going to be punched in the face with something. Like something's going to come your way you're going to have to deal with. And automation won't solve that. But just keep going. Like the entrepreneurial journey is worth it. Two is don't put off tough decisions, whether that's automation or whether that's just making sure the right people are on your team. I've found over my years that the longer I put off tough decisions, the tougher they get when you have to make them. And three, if you are looking to automate and you want to get started, we do have a free one-page guide, like a task list that could help you. I think we put it at www.method.me/common sense. And so your listeners can read that and hopefully help them get started.
Awesome. So that link will be in the description of the show, so that if you want to pick up that guide and work your way through that guide and apply it to yourself, you can do that. Paul, I appreciate you coming out today. Thank you for coming on and presenting the benefits of automation. I can't be the only one talking about this, and I know I'm not, of course, but it's wonderful to hear your story, kind of where you come from and how you're solving a problem right now with automating in the marketplace.
Hey, thanks for having me. Really, really enjoyed being here.
Awesome. All right. That was Paul Jackson from Method. We had a great time talking today about automation. His company, check out this website. They do some really cool stuff. Integrating with QuickBooks is not easy. Using QuickBooks is challenging. So I think that Method is a CRM product that would actually work really well for businesses who are looking to simplify their billing, their processes in their business, and making process improvements that actually matter. No code is a huge movement right now because it takes a person who is a novice at technology, and it gives you all the powers of software developers from yesteryear, the ones that would build these programs and cost $200,000 to have on staff. But if you are looking to make those process improvements in your business, don't forget, I built a course. It's called the BOP Implementer. BOP stands for Blueprint, Optimize, Position. It's the BOP Implementer system. I'll have a link to my course in the description. That shows you how you can take what you're doing in your business, how you create standard operating procedures step by step. It's going to show you how to work through those processes. And then at the end of all those things, you call someone like Paul Jackson, because you're going to need his system to implement all the stuff that you learned by going through the process of that course. It's all about systems in your business. That's what's going to take your business to the next level. That's how you become a 7 or 8 figure business, is by making sure that the low hanging fruit is taken care of and try not to repeat the same mistake twice. All right. Well, thank you for watching today. And don't forget, if you don't go about taking care of your business, you're going to be doing the business of someone else. Until next time, I'm Micah, and I'm out of here.